Welcome to Cincinnati Music Hall in the heart of the Queen City and the Over the Rhine Historic District. When Music Hall opened almost a century and a half ago, it became the cultural epicenter of Cincinnati, Ohio, and the Great Midwest. Its purpose as a building on land donated by the city was to provide citizens a space for all kinds of events, from choral festivals, concerts, and conventions, to traveling shows, art exhibits, and annual industrial expositions. This magnificent, monumental structure is 3 buildings in one, constructed out of 4 million bricks. The center opened first as Music Hall, a large auditorium between these 2 towers. After only 1 year of construction in 1878. The North Hall and South Hall opened just 17 months later for a grand industrial exposition in 1879. On the north is Machinery Hall that displayed the most up-to-date steam age inventions. And on the south was Horticultural Hall, which had an arched glass roof and displayed exotic plants, flowers, trees, fruits, vegetables, and fountains. Today, the entire structure is known as Cincinnati Music Hall, owned by the city and managed by the Cincinnati Arts Association, and home of the May Festival, Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra, Cincinnati Pops, Cincinnati Opera, Cincinnati Ballet, the Friends of Music Hall, which funds restorations, and their 30 volunteer guides. By choosing the high Victorian Gothic style, eminent architect Samuel Hannaford ensured that every time you approach Music Hall, it's a dramatic encounter, announcing its purpose. Its grandeur feels solid, like a safe fortification, constructed with 3-foot thick walls of Ohio common brick from brickyards all over the city. Its 150-foot high peaked gable and rooftops can be seen across the Cincinnati Basin and from the surrounding hills. Gothic details like the rose window stirs a joyous, sacred feeling, inviting you into this cathedral of the arts. The front is faced with pressed bricks in a deep cherry red from Philadelphia and Zanesville, Ohio, with black bricks originally dipped in tar and laid in patterns to excite the facade like music. The decorative black brick patterns and light sandstone carvings balance its mass with inviting details. Gables topped with sandstone finials or Gothic fleuron lifts the silhouette upward into the clouds. Welcome to the Edith B. Linder Grand Foyer, named for beloved arts patron and generous donor to the 2017 revitalization of Music Hall. Look up, we are encircled by the well, as it is lovingly called. For decades, audiences on the second floor balcony level have leaned over that original balustrade to spy friends and wave to acquaintances. It is held up by these original cast iron columns, resting on the original floor from 1878. Many types and styles of shoes have promenaded over this red slate with white marble. Look all the way up, 42 feet at the coffered ceiling with plaster rosettes. These are supported from iron beams, each weighing 22,000 pounds, which hold the 3rd floor above us, Dexter Hall, originally a recital hall, today known as Corbett Tower. A highlight of the recent revitalization with restored stenciling and tracery windows, thanks to the Friends of Music Hall. Patricia and J. Ralph Corbett attended concerts and operas often and donated generously to the rehabilitation of Music Hall in the 1970s. And she was also one of the founding members in 1987 of the Society for the Preservation of Music Hall, today the Friends of Music Hall. People from all walks of life have filled this spacious vestibule that opens to the south and the north. Looking into the south foyer, you can see a sculpture of arts patron and major benefactor Reuben Springer, who donated almost half of the $450,000 cost of Music Hall's construction. And just beyond those doors, in the South Hall, first floor, today is the box office, where you can pick up tickets for the hundreds of events happening in Music Hall each year. And beyond that are the offices of the CSO and the May Festival. The South Hall once had art galleries, which is where the collection and fundraising began for the Cincinnati Art Museum, a roller skating rink, tennis courts, and horseback riding shows. In 1928, the glass roof of Horticultural Hall was removed and a second floor was constructed for America's largest ballroom, which became Cincinnati's premier venue during the Jazz Age. Big band, bebop, and the beginnings of rock and roll were heard there, including the greatest stars of the day, Edward Duke Ellington, Guy Lombardo, Cab Calloway, Louis Armstrong, Glenn Miller, William Count Basie, Tommy Dorsey, Lionel Hampton, Billie Holiday, Sarah Vaughan, Fats Domino, Doris Day, and Lou Rawls. Today, the Music Hall Ballroom houses the restored 1927 Wurlitzer organ, maintained by the Friends of Music Hall. Come hear a concert with all the bells and whistles, literally. To the north, you see the statue of famous conductor Theodore Thomas, who with his traveling orchestra introduced classical music across North America, which led to the formation of major symphony orchestras in the U.S. He was the first music director of the May Festival, which is still held annually in Music Hall and is the oldest continuous choral festival in the Western Hemisphere. Today, the Corbett Opera Center is just beyond the North Foyer in the North Hall. The North Hall once had classrooms for one of the first free kindergartens in the city, a technical school, hosted home shows, automobile shows, ice skating reviews, bowling, and once even an Olympic-sized pool. In 1928, the North Hall became a 6,000-seat sports arena where there was basketball, wrestling, and boxing. World heavyweight champ, the Cincinnati Cobra, Ezzard Charles, started his career here with 24 bouts in Music Hall. Today, the second floor has a beautiful new event space, the Wilkes Studio. Before we enter the Springer Auditorium, notice these stately doors, the trim and transoms, also from the recent revitalization. They were milled to match the original 1878 doors, funded by the Friends of Music Hall. On May 14, 1878, Music Hall opened as the largest concert hall in the U.S. for the third May Festival, with seating for 4,428. The stage held over 700 May Festival chorus members and 100 orchestra musicians. A mammoth Hook and Hastings organ stood in the midst of the Music Hall stage. The mural behind this glorious modern chandelier was completed as a showcase for the 17th May Festival and represents the muses of the arts: music, singing, dancing, acting, poetry, science, and history. This is the soul of Music Hall. Over the past 140 years, many of the world's most extraordinary artists have graced her stage. From legendary actress Sarah Bernhardt to 19th century divas Adelina Patti and Cissy Retta Jones. Celebrated operatic singers Enrico Caruso, Marian Anderson, William Warfield, Leontine Price, Martina Arroyo, Jessye Norman, Luciano Pavarotti, and Renee Fleming. Violin virtuosa Maud Powell, an equal to her male contemporaries Fritz Kreisler and Eugene Issei, who performed here as well. And pianist Sergei Rachmaninoff and George Gershwin. Composers included Nathaniel Dett, Sir Edward Elgar, Richard Strauss, Ottorino Respighi, Igor Stravinsky, Aaron Copland, Henry Mancini, and Quincy Jones. Conductors John Philip Sousa, Walter Damrosch, Leopold Stokowski, Max Rudolph, Leonard Bernstein, Seiji Ozawa, Sarah Caldwell, Eric Kunzel, and CSO music director Louis Longray, and Cincinnati Pops conductor John Morris Russell. The CSO was founded in 1895 by an all-woman board and has made Music Hall home for most of its 125-year history. Dancers from Anna Pavlova, Isadora Duncan, Rudolf Nureyev, and Mikhail Baryshnikov, with exciting performances by the Cincinnati Ballet starting in 1974 on the Music Hall stage. Pop stars included Mamie Smith, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles, Ella Fitzgerald, Elton John, Prince, Janis Joplin, Pink Floyd, Fish, Dolly Parton, Johnny Cash, and Common. Originally, the floor was flat so that folding chairs could be removed to set up for expositions and other large-scale events, including circuses, gymnastic presentations, bicycle shows, a Republican, Democratic, and Prohibition convention. In 1895, a renovation added this permanent proscenium to hold curtains to change the scenery for operas. In 1972, the Cincinnati Opera made Music Hall its permanent home. 2 wraparound balconies were constructed of oak beam girders with fronts made of plaster with these classical palm leaf designs. During the recent revitalization, these balconies were exposed and supported with steel beams. Welcome to the Taft Suite, named for the Louise Taft Semple Foundation and Tina and Dudley Taft. Louise Taft Semple and her mother, Anna Sinton Taft, were and continue to be major supporters of the community's cultural assets. In 1927, Anna Sinton and Charles P. Taft started an endowment for the arts in Cincinnati, the first and largest community campaign for the arts in the nation, today called Arts Wave. The enormous Hook and Hastings organ on the main hall stage was 50 feet wide by 60 feet tall. Built in Boston and installed here in 1878, it was an engineering feat. Without electricity, it wasn't designed to use steam engines like those in Machinery Hall, but hydraulic power. The hydraulic motors were under the stage and received water from the Mount Auburn Reservoir through a 6-inch main into the basement to pump the motors of 5 huge bellows, which filled 17 wind chests. Giant bellows needed to push enough air to produce sound in these 6,277 pipes, as well as the echo organ above the auditorium's dome that created 19th century surround sound. The works were hidden behind 121 art-carved cherry wood panels. The designs were uniquely American, with a hint of Gothic to harmonize with the hall's architecture. The panels and trim pieces were carved by 100 women attending 2 art carving schools in Cincinnati. You can see the initials of the carvers or who their work was dedicated to, like MTS for Mabel T. Spears, or this one dedicated to Elizabeth Williams Perry, president of WAMA, the Women's Art Museum Association. The arts ushered in a new era for women who were looking for ways to learn skills to earn a living. Laura Fry was one of the most prolific panel designers. She designed 9 and carved 1, Mendelssohn. Also, Bach, Handel, Mozart, of all the other 15 composers represented on the organ screen. Mozart is displayed here. She also designed 3 panels titled Morning, Noon, and Evening. Evening can be seen here, which was donated back to Music Hall from the Corbett Foundation. When the organ was dismantled in 1971, the panels were given away as gifts, and only a few remained in Music Hall. The Friends of Music Hall are actively seeking more of the missing panels to restore and return to their home for the public to enjoy. Welcome backstage. It's an immensely vast, air-filled space with exposed brick, unadorned today and quiet when the house is dark, and as alluring as the decorative auditorium it still faces. It once was lined in oiled poplar wood that glowed in the gas lighting and curved like the inside of a violin. The center windows in the apse opened to the sunlight during the day, shining as hundreds of choristers entered from doors on the 2nd floor and came down the steep risers to find their places on either side of the mighty organ. There has always been an atmospheric glow from the ghost light on the stage, which is kept burning after a performance has ended until it's moved again for the setup of another show. Stagehands prepare and plan far in advance to make the magic happen from behind the proscenium. They fearlessly scale these ladders 80 feet into the loft and walk the grid above to check the riggings and operate this fly rail system with metal counterweights holding each line, flying in and out curtains, backdrops, and lights. For orchestral concerts, these massive acoustical towers are rolled downstage to just the right position, and care is taken to adjust the translucent acoustical ceilings in front of the proscenium and these clouds above, sending music to each and every ear and heart of patrons in the hall. Think of the energy behind this proscenium when a show is about to begin. All the thousands of entertainers who have prepared to walk out onto that maple floor, straightening their clothes, taking a deep breath, calming the butterflies in their stomachs before entering this magnificent and illustrious auditorium. Under the main roof is the audacious engineering. In 1877, the walls were finished in just 7 months, and a forest of scaffolding was built inside to raise these wood and iron trusses, to put on the roof and red and gray slate shingles before winter arrived. This elaborate network of iron suspension rods support the roof and ceiling below. Peering through the rondelle grille, you can follow the cable holding the 1,500-pound crystal chandelier sparkling above the seats below. Here you can still see the bent wood circle forms that suspended the original gas chandeliers in the hall before the ceiling was lowered 5 feet in 1895. Music Hall's iconic 30-foot rose window still sits in a 15,000-pound iron frame. Strong and delicate, its 8 petals symbolize rebirth, like the 8th tone of a scale which begins a new octave. This window looks onto our city and calls us inside to experience something new every time we visit Cincinnati Music Hall. Through many remodels and changes preserved from demolition, the community has embraced Music Hall as a place to find common ground within its walls. Listening, watching, and joining choruses, music, opera, ballet, dances, parties, graduation, weddings, and gatherings of all kinds that bring us together here in Cincinnati Music Hall.